Hey guys, what's going on? So this video is going to be a little bit different. I thought to spice things up, we would do some interviews, and I thought what better way to kick off interviews than with our very own pastor, Denny Henderson. So I got a few questions for him as it relates to our ministry and on all of that stuff. So what's up, man?
Not much, man.
Hey,
thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Question number one. As a pastor, why does or should the church place so much value on the gatherings or services in relation to music and production, graphics, all of those sorts of things?
You know, nowhere in Scripture does it give us a description of what church should look like when we gather together. I mean, it doesn't tell us there has to be lights, there has to be, there has to be a video, there has to be a worship band, and make sure your worship leader has a goatee, and make sure he has cool glasses, or make sure that, your band looks cool. Like, we don't see that in Scripture. In fact, I would say for most Christ followers, they're still struggling to understand, or they're wrestling with the question, do I even need to go to church? Like, is church a thing or an activity that God requires of me? The writer of Hebrews tells us to not neglect coming together as some are in the habit of doing, that we should always be coming together. And so there is a pretty strong principle of the early church that God is pleased when they gather together. And when they do gather together, that there's specific tenets, if you will, that they should be engaging in. They should be preaching the word. There should be a supremacy of Scripture. There should be the worship of God. There should be prayer. There should be a time of edification where you're edifying one another. That this really does give us a portrait, I think, of what the New Testament church looks like. So, in the same vein of that first question, how do our gatherings fit into this movement of being missional? And what I mean by that is, we're telling our people to go out and be Jesus with people, yet at the same time, we do place a value on our gatherings. And it seems on the surface, at least, that these two ideas contradict, and I would argue they don't. Can you speak into that? Sure. I understand where some could view the contradiction of we want people to gather, but we also want to disperse them. When the New Testament church gathered together, their main intent in gathering together was not so much to put on a show so that those who don't know Jesus can get familiar with Jesus. That wasn't what they did. In fact, the philosophy, I think, of the gathered church was that we gather together because Jesus Christ is attractive and He has our affections, and we're going to gather together so that we can give our worship, we can learn about Him, we can draw closer to Him by understanding the truths of the gospel. And in doing so, He will put us on mission for the lost. But the gathered church, they gather together, their main priority was the worship of God and the truths of God. I think the same is true today, that when the gathered church gathers together, a huge responsibility for worship leaders, the band, the technicians, the artists, to see that their responsibility is to draw people to the throne of God so that they can, again, reconnect with their affections for Him. And lastly, can you give us just a pastoral encouragement to not only the worship ministry here at our church, but also to other teams who might be joining in watching this video right now? If I can encourage, our volunteers, our worship team, those who literally, put in a lot of hours week in, week out to for the sake of our church coming together and worshiping together. And there's so many jobs that are done that no one ever really sees. They notice it when it's done wrong sometimes, but they don't always notice it when it's done right. And if I had to encourage our team and encourage other people, other churches, other volunteers in other churches, it would quite simply be that even when no one notices what you're doing, you are part of an event that happens on a weekly basis that we think, man, we put so much time and energy into this 1 hour and 20 minutes. this hour and 20 minutes on Sunday, there's practices that happen, there's songs that are written, there's videos that are shot, there's sound needs that are taken care of, and things that have to be rewired, and all of that, all for just all for an hour and 20 minutes. I mean, like, really? And I just want to encourage you to say, yeah, really. It's really important, because our focus many times gets so far away from the things of God. We get so distracted. Life itself, circumstances of life, can easily take our focus and move them somewhere else. And so when we gather together, we want to do our part to take away every obstacle. And so we want to rip away those obstacles and then create an environment that leads people, again, to be reminded of their affections for God. Because we have to be reminded of our affections for God almost continually. And so I guess as a way of encouragement is to give it your best every week, even when you're tired, even when you've had a rough week yourself. Give it your best for God and for His people, because they need to drink. They need to drink from the fountain of Christ again, and sometimes we have to lead them there. And so, so the role that everyone plays, it is just really, really important, and it fuels the missional movement of demonstrating the gospel of the world around us.